Welcome to another episode, and today I'm joined by the one and only Tom Kysar to do what we love to do, yap about what's going on in the Interop ecosystem. Tom, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I think this will be a fun one. Right? I think it's a very large event for both bridging and kind of crypto in general, right? So yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, let me set up some context. Last weekend, on Sunday, I believe, something major happened in the Interop ecosystem. LayerZero put up a proposal on the Stargate DAO forum to acquire Stargate protocol. And they made an offer which was originally worth $110 million. And this would be done by them acquiring STG tokens. So I think there's been a lot of chatter obviously around like what this means and what this means for the overall bridging space in general, and we'll go through some of the public comments and questions and opinions. Tom, what did you make of the news that came up?
I mean, at first it was like, the number had some level of sticker shock, right? I think it's a large deal. Like in a broad stroke, M&As are like somewhat uncommon in crypto. You see them sometimes. Usually M&A is like an acqui-hire, right? For the most part. So it's rare to see like a proposal nonetheless with like a 9-figure dollar amount attached to it. So that was like I was like, yo, what is what? Huh? But then like, sure, like I think it clearly makes sense, right? Stargate was born out of it is born out of LayerZero. It is the primary LayerZero app. It is for all intents and purposes, flagship application of LayerZero. It's the best use case that you can kind of communicate to like a retail user. Somebody, what does this do, right? However, that goes back into you don't want you don't want people to think LayerZero is a bridge, right? But
Yeah, like it's the application that most users interact with and like associate LayerZero tech with, because this is something that they can use, right? So they don't know what's powering the tech under the hood, but like Stargate is something that they can go on the UI and like actually click buttons, and they feel like they're using LayerZero, and this is what they found for the airdrop.
Sure, right. There's a handful of them, but yeah, it probably will remain something like that for the foreseeable. Like LayerZero isn't really intended to it's infrastructure, right?
Mhm.
So like it's actually kind of rare that infrastructure exposes itself to the end user. And it actually doesn't when it comes to Stargate. Like if you haven't known and you just go to Stargate and bridge, I guess if you click like the Explorer link, you'll go to LayerZero scan. But for the most part, you don't know this is using LayerZero. And like you don't need to know. But it has been their identities have been so close for so long, right? That the vast majority of people around still know. And I think from LayerZero's POV, right? I personally think for the most part, they've won some level of the infrastructural battle of interop, right? OFTs, chain integrations, coverage, notoriety is like the primary and kind of, number one implementation solution, just at like a social level.
Mhm.
And the one thing they don't have anymore, right, is the retail facing distribution. And I think we talk about this a lot with bridging and stuff, right? I think a lot of people share some sort of an opinion of the distribution is what kind of makes or breaks and kills and is the valuable thing to be going after right now, right? And that there's a lot of infrastructure. They did the hard one actually, because there's a lot of infrastructure, and like infrastructure is really hard to win, right? Retail stuff, it kind of goes back and forth for a while too, and there'll be players, they win for like a year, then like something happens and they die and someone else comes in, and see this with crypto exchanges, right? All the time, until kind of Coinbase and Kraken like emerges victorious. But yeah, I mean, I read through it and I was like, okay, this is a lot of money. My first thought was this is an insane deal. Like favorably, I was like, I think there are a lot of teams out there that would be very interested in getting a fully diluted valuation buyout of their token, right? Like well, because sure, now when you think about it more, you have to start valuing this in a certain way and differently, right? But even just the first thing that went through my head was if you were just like trade this OTC, right? This would trade it. I mean, 100% of the token supply, right? You go make a bid for 100% of the token supply. Like, surely you're not paying market price, nonetheless above market price. But when you put it in this sort of a deal, in this sort of a context, I think that is what is required, obviously, right, in order to get this sort of a deal done. It doesn't. You could try to make the argument, and it would probably be fair, right? If you take 100% of all Stargate and try to market, I mean, there's just no buyer. Like if you try to market them, there's no buyer, right? But even with that, I mean, the liquidity that exists, it's just like it doesn't work, right?
Yeah, I mean, just to like give more context to everyone, this is pretty unprecedented in crypto, right? Like, this is uncharted territory because, sure, acquisitions happen like almost every day nowadays. But like Tom said, they're more acqui-hires, right? Like, teams go out, and this happens in private equity markets in a way. Like, they would hire the team, and then like they would pay the other team that's being acquired in the form of equity or like some sort of future incentives. But because of the two entities, in this case, like both of them have a token that's actively trading, and then both of them have a DAO. So this complicates things a lot because like even when a regular acquisition is happening, like it's so hard to align everyone's incentives. But now there's like thousands or like 10,000s of token holders incentives to align as well. This is uncharted territory, and it doesn't really happen. Like, I think in crypto it has happened once or twice, and before like we started recording, we were trying to come up with all the examples, and we probably came up with two, and we couldn't even get the names right, and those examples even didn't even go through fully.
Yeah, I feel like there's a bunch of people who have tried this and for some reason along the way hasn't, or they've tried it and then it didn't work and then somebody just hijacked it, right? And they like made it work. It no longer went through the proper channel, right? I think that's happened a couple times.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I mean it's doing a DAO. I mean a DAO is an astronomical feat just by nature of the idea that you're going to make 10,000 financially
Just
incentivized
running a
people.
DAO in general is such a challenge. So imagine like coming up with such a proposal to acquire the entire protocol and then aligning incentives with the DAO. Like, it's a Herculean task to say the least. But like I want to list the reasons that Brian actually mentioned
Yeah.
on his tweet to for the rationale behind the acquisition, right? So the LayerZero team said this move will basically help them avoid any sort of like overhead in terms of which team does what, because naturally like even at LeFi, like we have LeFi and Jumper, and one is the infrastructure and one is the like user facing product, and you're sort of like trying to decide, you have a new BD partner or like a new chain integration, so who takes care of this like task at this moment? So I'm
And
guessing like,
for what it's worth, I think this has been a confusing. I mean, I've heard chain teams say this is a confusing
yeah,
point,
like who do I
and
go talk to?
well, and it does get segregated, right? So there's things you go and talk to Stargate for, and there's things you go and talk to LayerZero for, right?
Yeah.
And it's not one and the same. And teams like think it should be, but like they're kind of confused, right? I have heard this feedback a couple times. They're just like, do I talk to Stargate? Do I talk to LayerZero? I don't know. One's doing my chain integration, one's doing it in like the exchange. Like,
Mhm.
what is it? So
Yeah, and then they talk about how Stargate now gets all the LayerZero in-house resources. So of course, like LayerZero is a much bigger team. Like I think they have more than 100 people, and then they have their own treasury. Stargate is a smaller team. I think they have 20 people. They're like hiring more, but then now they basically get all the resources, all sort of like legal help, all sort of like help in terms of running the organization, like the day-to-day organization work that not a lot of people want to do, maybe like those resources, as well as like development resources that LayerZero have, like are now at Stargate's disposal as well.
and something on that we can discuss further after if you'd like is I think not only is there like the operational merging and assistance and cleanup of both, not both, but merging of the organizations and streamlining. Layer Zero's been giving these guys like a lot of talent, resources, product like developments, and like Layer Zero doesn't need to do this. They're not like I mean they don't have like a they're not like a they have no like fiduciary duty to do this. They have no obligation to do this, right? They do this because they wanted to see Stargate win, and they were had like it was. But outside of what, I don't even think Layer Zero, the company, owns Stargate token. I think probably the
Yeah.
employees might have Stargate because they're like banned from voting on it. So like, but other than that, they have no real incentive other than it's a good thing for Layer Zero to do. However, if Layer Zero as a company, I guess, decides someday that they need distribution or so they want to go after like frontward facing retail distribution, and this doesn't occur, there's worlds where Layer Zero just says like, I'm not doing this anymore. And then like what happens to Stargate? They just cooked, right? I mean, they're operating at a like an $8 or $10 million loss already. and that money will eventually dry up, right? But outside of that, if they're really providing a significant level of infrastructural product development, inclusion in new developments and things that allow Stargate to accomplish and kind of be what it is today, it's just like I don't think LayerZero has any obligation to do that. And if the ecosystem decides that they don't think something like this is the best case for Stargate, I think there's a world LayerZero just says like, okay, cool, good luck, like GLHF, right? Like I don't know. So that's like my long tail concern with that, right? And like it's these two are clearly together. Like the idea that you ever like propose some other entity purchasing Stargate is ridiculous,
I
right?
mean, in general, like this is more about alignment on all levels. Like there's no need to go through like 5 different channels. Like it's just like it happens in house, and then everybody is on the same team. Like right now, they would have to go through the LayerZero DAO, LayerZero leadership, and then Stargate leadership, and then like Stargate DAO. So like this is just streamlining everything. So I think it makes sense. But I want to go through some of the questions, opinions, and like concerns from the public, and then like try to get sort of insider's opinion on someone from someone who understands the interop ecosystem, right? So like the first question I had in general was, why do you think LayerZero wants to own the consumer facing product now? Like you sort of touched on this already, but does it just mainly come down to actually owning the end user relationship?
I think that's a desired outcome of
Mhm.
why you would pursue this, right? However, yeah, I think ultimately the primary push is probably some level of you want to retain value of the end user relationship and the forward facing product that the users interact with. Again, like we said earlier, like you don't really know you're using LayerZero when you Stargate. Maybe they want them to, right? Maybe that's a good thing for LayerZero, right? Maybe there's a way to make people kind of know this is a LayerZero thing. I don't know, right?
Does Target say powered by LayerZero?
I don't. It might at the bottom or something, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not primary enough to where like I see it when I use it, right?
Yeah.
But two, I think there's and like I think this might have just gotten sized up in some of the comms is like, oh, it's like business talk. Like it sounds kind of like a sure this sounds great for everybody, but I think there's a lot of merit to the idea that LayerZero wants to and like it sounds bad, like it doesn't sound descriptive, but like move fast, right?
Mm.
But there's a world where I mean we don't know their pipeline, we don't know their development cycle, right? Like LayerZero might have I don't know 30 chains like ready to be integrated and ready to go, and the process for
Mm.
putting that through is they're like, hey, if this was in my office and the
Yeah.
desk over for me, we would just jam this out in a weekend or something. But they have the control to make that more of a reality, right? And none of us know really what I don't know what they're going to do with it. I have some theories, right? But it's the ability to in-house something. I mean, I think this also boils down to some extent. You can kind of think of it like having a remote team versus an in-office team, right? You can think of it like people say this all the time, and they value an in-office team much more in a broad stroke, right? You have someone in office, and it's kind of true, right? You sit in an office with your team, and you get kind of a lot more done than you have to have really good people to do the remote stuff, but that's what it feels like. It feels like right now this is a remote team and
Or
LayerZero is like,
maybe a
yo, I want
better
you in my office.
analogy is like a dev shop. Like you have a dev shop. Yeah.
And it's just the comms. I mean, I think are they going to move them over? I don't know. I think Stargate's in London, right? It's
Yeah.
on the opposite time zone, right? They're sleeping, they're awake, it's just if you have deemed that you want to make progress on the end user application, you want to make progress on getting back into that market, etc. There's no other answer. There's no other answer. It's just like, yeah, we need to in-house this back. And I think it makes the most sense, particularly like it was kind of in-housed once. It's not like this is some like weird new scary thing.
Yeah.
It's like a puzzle piece, and they can probably kind of put it right back to where it came from. You know what I mean? To some extent.
It was launched by the LayerZero team initially. So
Yes.
like that's the context there.
Yeah. The context, yeah. I mean, DAOs don't just birth themselves, right? Someone needs to file the
I'm just
foundation paperwork.
laying down to a foundation for anyone who hasn't been in the interop like trenches for the last 4 years. LayerZero was the team that actually launched Stargate protocol initially.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what do you think? What do you think? Like as competitors in this space, like how would they be thinking about this like news? Because I mean, this is just like you said, it's uncharted territory, right? So nobody knows how to best think about it. But if you're a competitor to Stargate, like, what do you think about now?
I'm curious and maybe a bit concerned and a bit, my eyebrows are raised and like maybe like squints emoji, right? It's kind of like they're trying to cook something.
Mhm.
Something's trying to be cooked here, right? Whatever that is. And then Brian's like, they've alluded to this in their tweets, right? They're like, oh, we have all this kind of like big stuff that we're trying to do, right? We don't know what they're cooking, but like they're cooking something, right? This is a large amount of money, regardless of the fact that it's in their token. You're like, sure, their token, whatever. Like it's still a lot of money, and that token is still valuable, right? So this isn't fake Fugazi, etc. Even though people like to think crypto tokens are, but it's real money, right? And there's a lot of liquidity in this thing, and so this is like a big decision to some extent, surely. Like if I was a competitor, I would, and I think we can probably deduce down a couple things that might be the end result of this and the things that they can do, right? But it's kind of like if I was like a wormhole or like an Axelar or whatever, I would kind of feel like I just got like a sniper little like laser dot on me, where it's like shit, like somebody's trying to do something here. Oh no, and it's not me. Oh no, right?
Interestingly, earlier when we used to talk about how LayerZero has a flagship like liquidity bridge on top with Stargate, and then when you think about like Wormhole, Axelar, they also have bridges that are built on top, but they're not as well tied or aligned with like the top messaging layer, right? Like, or the bottom messaging layer. So if you think about it, this move to acquire Stargate, like this just takes it to another level, where the alignment is just like unprecedented. And like you said, there has to be a bigger picture play why this needs to be done now, because it's not like things are not going well right now. Like Stargate still dominates a lot of the volumes.
Stargate is arguably winning, right? Depending on how you define winning here, Stargate is winning like the long-term bridging battle. There's some smaller people out there, kind of like us, right? Where it's like you win some very small vertical, but like it's not the final end state. It's not really sustainable. I kind of view a lot of like the intense-based stuff today in that realm. And Stargate is winning in a way that, I mean, Stargate has no cost of capital. It's just like, how do you beat that, right? You can't. I don't know how you ever beat that in the long run, as long as it's deployed and like used optimally. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe they thought the distribution of capital in these pools and et cetera are like, I mean, actually, I took a look at this the other day. We could probably go through there and reallocate some of that capital if you have, but if you want to do that today, you got to go make a forum post.
Yeah.
And you got some guy who's like mad at you because like he's a bag holder of the chain and he's like, no, we can't like take the money out. And it's just a nightmare, right? You in-house this all and you go, okay, screw this. Listen, we got $20 million in a pool. It's just 10 grand of liquidity a day. Yank that out, go put it somewhere else. I can offer better rates over here now, right? So I think you can make it a lot. You can probably optimize these routes significantly if you don't need to get a DAO approval every time you kind of want to shuffle assets around in these protocol owned pools, right?
Makes sense. I mean, so Stargate obviously holds a lot of strategic importance in the crypto ecosystem, I would say, because of the amount of liquidity that the protocol holds, and like they have the mint and burn mechanism, so there's like a lot of protocol owned liquidity. So do you think, looking at these moves by LayerZero, some of the competitors, like, I don't know, I'm just throwing out names like Wormhole, Axelar, look at this and they're like, can we offer more money to the DAO and I don't know, take over, like a hostile takeover of the deal?
If this was like there's like a single comment, I think this is fairy tale ludicrous. The idea that anybody but LayerZero could ever reasonably absorb Stargate, its operations, its products, its developments. Angus has come out and said Stargate has given us all of these development resources and helped us with all this, right? Like it sounds a lot like most of the stuff is being done by LayerZero. The idea that you could ever get
So like
no
hypothetical situation, like Chainlink is big enough, or like Wormhole's token is big enough.
And I think even the token holders realize that is just a goddamn death wish. I mean, LayerZero can just crush them. LayerZero goes, all right, cool, thanks for playing, right? And like they'll just crush them. They'll make their own, or they'll do something else, and they'll just fucking crush them. It's. I'm trying to think of a comparable. I can't even. It's the idea that the flagship application of LayerZero that was born out of the LayerZero company could ever, like, it's just like, huh? And honestly, if you're one of these companies, you don't want to buy it.
it's a DAO, right? So you can come up with, like, let's say 250 million as an offer. So you're basically giving 2.5x the offer, like the original offer, and then you're like, you can convince the DAO members to go in your direction. So it is possible, but like
Sure,
it will probably not happen.
it is technically possible. I would be inclined to think even the token holders realize how not realistic of a path it would be for them to go down and do this.
I mean, the
And it would
token
just be a
holders
death
get a
wish.
payday. Token
What?
holders get a payday. Like, they're done.
But like token holders can get a payday today if they want to. Token holders could have gotten a payday a year ago or 2 years ago when it was $4 and the treasury was huge, right? All they had to do was propose a risk-free value distribution event, right? Nobody did it. Why? Because really supposed people like they like Stargate. So the Stargate community, right? They could have proposed liquidating this out when the treasury was 5 times more if they really wanted to, right? No, I think this is like, I think part of some of the conversation in the public forum got like slightly derailed. But the idea that, nonetheless, the idea that somebody that's not LayerZero would even want to buy it, I think is, no, if this much money too. First off, like for that much money, Stargate doesn't make this much money. It doesn't justify the valuation, right? Like this is justified because LayerZero has all of that kind of intangible value that it gets with the fact that Stargate is the flagship application on LayerZero.
Mhm.
Other than that, I think Stargate made 300K last quarter, man, in revenue or profit. Like
I mean, they
it's
have a
not
massive treasury. Like, I think that's the most valuable asset.
sure, but the Layer Zero is paying over the treasury amount. So
Mhm.
I mean, I think there's merit to trying to argue that if you want to, that how should you price this thing, right?
Yeah, like,
It's actually a
with
difficult thing
the
to price.
acquisition by, like, another third party, I'm just throwing a curveball. Like, I don't see that happening at
Yep.
all. But like, let's talk about the valuation and how that was determined, right? So the price tag for the acquisition came up by determining Stargate's fundamental value. So it was calculated based on assets held in their treasury divided by the total number of circulating STG tokens, and then that's how they came up with the number of 0.144. But at the time, Stargate, like, the token was trading at 0.16. So the offer was made slightly above the existing uh, circulating price at the time. And then, like, the ratio was also decided at the time. So basically, all STD tokens were converted, or like they were proposed to be converted into ZRO at 1 is to 0.08 per token. So I think a lot of people have been talking about the valuation, about how, like, so I read a lot of the comments and they were saying like this is a fairly low valuation for Stargate. What do you think about this method of valuing the protocol in the first place? Because, like, crypto is not known for fundamental analysis when it comes to, like, price speculation.
Sure. I think this is the most realistic and objective way. The only other way you can value this is like what? Cash flows? You don't want that. Your offer is much lower if that's the case. Like the offer is essentially the most valuable thing that can be priced, which is like the treasury or the risk-free value of the DAO itself,
Yeah.
with a premium assigned to it, right? The idea that it's really hard. I don't even. This rarely ever occurs in like regular M&A either, where you ascribe a value to this intangible. We think this thing is great and we think it has future value. That's like not how investment works, right? You can't do that. I would be really rich if I could do that, but nobody buys that, right? If I could just be like, hey, listen, man, I promise you, like I'm really bullish in the next 3 years, so I think this is worth 5 times more. Like that's not how. Okay, then like the market has priced the thing. The market has priced the token. The market has priced the tokens in the treasury. I think it's reasonable if you want to argue that you want to argue some premium over it by nature of, I don't know, brand, ecosystem like penetration, etc. But I think the idea of like one using some level of like look back as relevant data to support this isn't really reasonable, particularly from the regard of, to say the elephant in the room, LayerZero was farmed for a year and a half. So yeah, Stargate's revenues were like really good for a portion in time, right? But this was also, go look at the LayerZero transaction chart. It's when it was going like this and right before it went like that. Like it was when there was artificial activity going through it because people were hoping for some future speculative value. And that's fine, right? There's nothing, it's not a con or a call like against Stargate by any means. But the idea that you would then like look back to that and not take that into consideration, and you're like, well, this once traded at $4, this once traded at $2. Okay, but it's not today, and the proposal is today. So I I think it might be reasonable if someone wants to argue what that premium is over essentially the Treasury's RFE. But I think the idea that people are like, we should benchmark this to some other application, and then I think it's 5 times better than that, and it should be okay. It should be $2.5 billion, whatever it is. Like it's just this isn't how anything works. It's not.
I mean, I
You
feel
know?
like it's a very fair offer when you think about it from like pure financial
I think it's a
sense.
sicko offer. Again, you know how many teams would kill to have their entire treasury bought out at FTP value?
But the thing is, like the token holders who bought in recently, seeing the price action of the token, like in the last year maybe, and then they're looking at the treasury and they have, I don't know, over $100 million in assets, and then they're looking at the revenue. Some of the token holders feel that it's slightly low, and then that there should be more premium, but that can be argued, right? Like that's subjective, and it's a proposal.
Yeah, and I saw a couple of these, and I don't know if these people are looking at revenue correctly. Stargate made like 300 grand last quarter. You want to, okay, well, say, even be conservative. Say it makes $2 million a year profit. What multiple do you assign it?
Mhm.
Right now, it's being assigned a 60x multiple, right? You don't hear this occurring. You want to argue that it should have a 500x multiple? I think regular kind of like, revenue generating software, I mean, software as a service is very different than this, right? But what, like 5x, 10x, 12x, something like this? Like, I don't think token holders, all of them necessarily know that they don't want this valued by the metrics. Like, you just don't. This is DeFi, right? This is everything that's happened with like DeFi tokens, how DeFi tokens like work. And this is why for a long time we used to meme the worst thing you can do as a DeFi token is launch a product, because suddenly we can precisely, there's no more speculative value in the Stargate token. There's no more potential new things coming out. It's fully vested. We know what the application does. We can sit and kind of look and see where they might make revenue from someday. And you can size this up like a real business now. And if you really want to go that route, guess what? Your offer isn't $110 million.
I think that
It's a
some
lot
of those
less.
token holders that are complaining, like they're missing the moon math. But like, I hate to break it to them, like there is no moon math. Like this is the best way to value it.
And I think that's why this proposal may have came to be, right? And like everyone kind of knows, like bridge tokens have never really kind of done well, right?
Like liquidity bridge tokens, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I still try to reverse this. I don't know what happened there. Stargate, Across, Axelar, Thorchain kind of did good, I guess, Rune or whatever. But for the most part, you don't want to be a bridge token. You want to be an interop token. That's for sure. Look at the valuation of LayerZero. You want to be an interop token. Not only do you want to be an interop token, you want to be an interop token that hasn't fully exposed its hand in everything it can do, where revenue comes from, where future revenue can come from, fully vested. Like, it's just, if you want like a moon bag per se as like a holder, you need to like keep one of these cards still face down. When the minute you put all these cards up, I can value you like you can value Dropbox or whatever the hell, right? It's just you're a business, and that will never be as favorable in crypto as the alternative, which is not telling everybody the numbers. And that's just how it works right now. It's not a bad thing per se. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, this is the nature of the beast. And if you want to be an active, successful player of the game, it's probably good that you should understand that to some extent, right? And that's not the case for everything, but I think that's the case right here for sure. And I think that's why Stargate's $110 million. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's a good offer. But like, what do you think this changes uh, for like the community and builders' perception towards Target, right? So I was reading a lot of like quote tweets, and users already think of LayerZero and Stargate as the same team because of how closely aligned and like tightly they run together, and especially with Stargate being like the flagship app on LZ and everything, like people think that it's the same team. So do you think there'll be a change in perception of that opinion from like a builder's perspective or a user's perspective?
I mean, no, I do think a lot of people incorrectly assume that Stargate is still under operational
Yeah.
ownership of LayerZero. And if they assume that, then okay, like nothing should change. Stargate now will be under operational ownership of LayerZero.
Like legally.
It's kind of what you thought all along. Like, why is your opinion going to change? No, I mean, I don't think the way I've always viewed Stargate, to be honest, is as like, for lack of a better term, like just the bridge itself. And I think I've actually never really thought of it unless I'm like thinking about it kind of like abstractly as the LayerZero flagship application.
Yeah.
I think of Stargate as like a bridge that as of more recent, it's kind of developed in my like mental model as this is the place for OFTs and brain minting, right? Prior to that, this is a liquidity pool, protocol owned based bridge that goes to a bunch of these chains, a bunch of these routes, and like hell yeah, it works, and it gives me good pricing, and so and I think the idea that somebody may like size this up different, etc. Maybe this is true in like our world, in our bridging world. I think in like the rest of the world and people who use these things, one, they either already thought this happened, so nothing's changed, or two, they just don't know and they don't care. Right? There's like, sick. Sometimes I go to Stargate and I bridge to Ape Chain. Like, hell yeah, it works quick. Like good tech, right? They don't know. They don't care. Most people don't know what LayerZero does, right? I don't
I
know.
think even in the bridging world, nothing changes because, like I said, it's just like very closely aligned. So even in our heads, it's not the same team, but like we know they think the same, but like their interests are the same.
And I think this is probably part of LayerZero's goal to change to some extent if this goes through, right? Which is you're gonna have. I mean, if I was in that case and I was buying Stargate, my like internal POV here would be like, you're gonna have a new opinion of Stargate once it gets into my hands, right? I'm gonna do something here, and like, yeah, I'm gonna change your POV of something. I don't know what this is yet, but I think they're clearly trying to do something, and the ideal end outcome here is not just like continue to passively run Stargate as is, because I don't know if that's worth $110 million to in-house that, right? I think you have to have plans and goals and ideas to accelerate what LayerZero is building and use Stargate as the outward facing funnel to begin distributing this new stuff that they're building or whatever they're doing out into the world, right? And do it at a faster pace. I think that's just functionally and fundamentally it, right? So I don't think much will change until it does. And you're gonna wake up one morning and we'll be like, yo, what the hell happened here, right?
Yeah, it's like we don't see their cards right now, so it makes sense. But like, so the traders, of course, have a very different view on things, right? So when this news came out, both tokens pumped. So
Sure.
do you think traders will see this as a bullish consolidation story?
Yeah, I mean, if it goes through, I think this is very favorable for LayerZero. How that correlates to, I mean, I would like to say no because how does this correlate to anyone's token? I don't know, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just everything in the industry, but surely it will. That's just because that's just how that works.
Mhm.
But I'm like, we trade, we do, but this is bridging tokens are one of the few, like, I don't care. Like, we have so much bridging shit to like think, like, alternatively think or worry about that. Like, I don't think I've ever thought about like the user persona of like the LayerZero trader, really.
Yeah.
Kind of like, it's just so, but I mean, I do think fundamentally, sure, if you are, I think this has to be the goal. There's no other reason to do this. You're distributing 110. You're also giving the Stargate eco your LayerZero token.
Mhm.
So there has to be some. I mean, my like high end conspiracy hypothesis surely is you're gonna in-house Stargate. You're gonna set this thing on fire and stab it with some steroids and adrenaline and I don't know. They wake up one day with 100 chains. They have some new thing. They have this. They have that. Just run it. It has to be the kind of introduction to some. Also, they said they would use Stargate revenues to buy back ZRO.
Mhm.
Right. So this has to be a part of a stepping stone plan in how do we ascribe value to ZRO? What is ZRO used for within this ecosystem? And maybe that makes sense because maybe, ZRO, maybe is it hard to use it with the infrastructure that LayerZero was built today, particularly from like a token holder POV?
Mhm.
Right? They were going to do like token fees if we turn this on with the vote. Maybe they rip out STG, they take in Stargate, and they replace it with ZRO for all we know. And you're going to stake ZRO in there, right? And you're going to have these pools, and they'll be waiting. They'll use ZRO as like the emissions for subsidies and stuff.
Makes sense. Like there's a clearer flywheel there. I feel like a lot
Yes.
of the teams in crypto are going in that direction where they probably have multiple products, but the brand is the same and they grow revenue, but like the value accrues to one entity. And in a way, that's like this is the era of vertical integration. Like you see that with Stripe as well, like trying to build out an entire stack, like crypto stack of their own with Privy, like bridge the stablecoin. Now they're building their own chain. So you see how some of these bigger companies, like, they want to own everything and then accrue value to the same token or like the same equity.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense. Imagine you're the LayerZero guys, and you're like, okay, the protocol's winning. Everything we're doing over here is winning. Our distribution funnel is also winning.
Yeah.
However, actually, I would justify this alone if I was a LayerZero guy, just being like, yo, DAOs are terrible. We didn't know that 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I mean, kind of did, but not nearly as much. And even if we knew this, it takes a lot of people doing it and running through it and realizing how terrible it is before they actually understand how terrible it is. But these things are terrible.
Mhm.
And like, if they're grossly, we know this. Decentralized software is significantly more inefficient than centralized. Centralized, this is what a DAO is. So unless you're getting some benefit from the fact that it's being a DAO, this is a waste of. I mean, arguably, you can argue what it's probably a waste of half their runway, of the money they're spending every year. Because if you can argue, they can operate 50% faster if they in-house everything with the same team. So I would argue you could probably make the argument to do this deal and make this decision from LZ's POV just from that, right? I don't know. I'm really not bullish DAOs if you can't get that one right now. At least current day DAOs, right? I think there's a good DAO that exists and a model for it, but no, DAOs are like really hard. You have to line all these people, and what's stopping all these people from stealing all the value? And no, whatever.
Do you think like this will sort of set the precedent for other players to also make similar moves and go out and acquire bridging front ends?
Yes,
Because
and I
like
think
we're seeing this with the stablecoin chains, if you think about it. Like USDT started with Plasma and Stable, and then Circle also launched Arc recently. So like once one big player does something, the others try to like do the same thing, tend to do the same thing.
and this would be such a good psyop if this ends up how it works out. Because if this works out somewhat smoothly for LayerZero, that is the outlier of this situation. Like, this should not work out smoothly, like functionally speaking. Like, you're trying to align all these people, and any history says the like 7 people we could think of that try to do this, nobody really
Yeah.
did it smoothly, and it kind of looks like this might go over smoothly. And if it does, you're gonna have all these people look at this and be like, "Oh wow, look, that was so easy," and they're gonna try it, and I think they're gonna, I think this is one of these things that might work in this exact situation because of the exact context. Because of the fact Stargate DAO was launched by the team, because it's the flagship application, it can go back in so easily, because of the fact that arguably if LayerZero stops providing assistance to Stargate, it might just die. And if this is a very unique case, I think, and if you're talking about like people alignment, right? Like, Ethereum, like, if there's ever the definition of something that's aligned, it's this, right? Like, how does something get more aligned than this? So I think people might see it and be like, oh, sick. Yeah, let's go like try to buy these DAOs. And they're just going to like get steamrolled on the governance forms or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's one of these things that feels like should be really difficult to accomplish. But in this case now, particularly after kind of reading the modern or the developments in the last day and such, right? It doesn't look like that's necessarily going to be the case. And that might just be only because of the context here. Like, that might just work only for LayerZero buying Stargate.
Yeah.
It's a
And
really hard thing.
like at the time of recording, like the current state is basically there's some disagreement because VE holders feel like they should be compensated a little bit extra because like they've vested tokens. And Layer Zero responded by saying that they agree with the sentiment and they're going to propose to distribute the next 6 months of Stargate revenue to VE holders. So it seems like that one potential hurdle will also be crossed, like when the new proposal sort of like comes up. And honestly, like I do expect this to go through in like the next week or so.
Well, I think it has to go to a vote or something. I think it has to stay live
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, particularly after reading kind of. So they did like a town hall in the Stargate Discord today, right? And there's a giant thread you can go through of kind of everyone's inline comments of it occurring before and after. And it seems like that was the real, difficult point to get through. And it seems like this has kind of, remedied the situation, which is okay. Yeah, we acknowledge the fact that if you stake something, yeah, you should probably be compensated a bit higher than the person who didn't have their capital locked up and inaccessible. And also, like, I think there's like $4 or $5 million of stake Stargate. It's not an astronomical amount
Yeah,
of
it's
money,
not that
right?
much.
Particularly in comparison to the overall thing. So it's not that. I'm not saying these people aren't, I'm not like,
Yeah.
but it's not like half the token supply is locked in this thing, right? The sentiment seemed pretty, and it seemed pretty good after. I think Primo was in there, maybe one or two other LZ guys, some large holders were in there. It almost seemed like they just kind of wanted somebody to come in there and talk to them, right? I know, I'm not even joking, right? Like they wanted to, I mean, okay, here's maybe this was like a post on the Stargate forum from like a LayerZero account, right? Like it wasn't personal. It wasn't like these guys know Brian, right? These guys know Angus. It maybe to some people it came off as like, sterile from that extent to whatever, right? But then as soon as these guys come in and talk to them, like, listen, you've known us for years. You know what we're doing. You know what kind of people we are. This is what our goals are. This is what we want to do. We understand that, maybe this and that you want consideration for being different and changed. And like, sure, we're open to it. What can we do? We already figured out. And it seems like as soon as they kind of came in and did that, everyone was like very friendly, very happy, and everyone was like, "Oh, this actually, I remember you guys are like really sick dudes. Like you're good at what you do, and like actually, this is probably pretty good for me if these things like the logicalness starts building together, right?
Yeah.
It might have just been it was a bit like they were a bit taken off guard almost. And it's like, who's writing this? And like, what are you trying to do with my Stargates? And like, get out of here. They just go into, they go into defense mode real quick. But no, I mean, this is clearly the superior. It's like, this is a no-brainer good option for Stargate, right?
I mean, if you had to give percentages to the probability, like this goes through or it doesn't go through, like what would you say you're at right now? I'm at like 99% it goes through,
Oh,
1% it doesn't.
yeah, I would say, I was going to say I would take like the over on like 90, yeah,
Yeah.
essentially. And that's honestly, I give 10% to some lawyer coming in and fucking something up. He's honest on either side. It's kind of what it is.
That can happen.
But that's what, because like, once you think about it, and it's almost like a curse, because guess what? If you say you reject this now, the ecosystem rejects this. LayerZero has illustrated their desire to acquire and own some front-facing retail distribution applications to push their software and their technology. Okay, and if you guys rejected it, well, okay, surely they're going to stop giving this support and assistance and etc. to Stargate and build their own, or go do this with someone else. Like, do you think they're just going to pack up after $100 million offer and be like, well, that didn't work. Like, okay, I guess we're never going to like touch retail, like the frontward facing applications. Like, oh, that was our one shot. We lost. No. And then if that happens, Stargate's just dead.
Yeah.
So it's almost like one of these things where, guys, if we reject
it has to happen.
It kind of has to happen, right? Because LayerZero is kind of like giving you this is what we're trying to do, boys, and you are the only people that do it. So we're trying to make this like a good deal, and it is a good deal. And how do we it's like, how do we put this puzzle back together? Because this is what makes sense. This is how Stargate doesn't die. And I'm sure no one's ever going to say that, right? But yeah, if you reject this, what do you expect the outcome to be? Do you really expect the ecosystem to reject this and LayerZero wake up tomorrow and still do everything they've been doing and assisting them? And it clearly doesn't accomplish whatever their goal is here. So I don't know. It feels like it has to happen. Like I don't know whose head the gun is to, but like it feels like if it's Stargate, if it's LayerZero, or I don't know. But I feel like if this doesn't happen, it's not a good outcome for Stargate. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it will happen, and then, like you said, we'll only find out in a few months from now, like what's the big picture move here.
Sure.
But you were kind of positioning this as how the bridging space might never be the same again. Like we'll see how that sort of like turns out.
Yeah, I was like, okay, how would I like try to like summarize this situation? And the only thing I really think of is there might be a world we all wake up 6 months from now, 8 months from now, 10 months from now, and realize that was the turning point of, I think, bridging as a business. Mm-hmm. Right? There are a lot of people in bridging as a business. Everyone's known that bridging as a business is essentially a function, more or less, of your cost of capital and your availability of capital. It's what it's constrained on. This is how you get volumes. This is how you get attraction. This is how you get integrations, etc. LayerZero Stargate. It doesn't get cheaper for Stargate. It's protocol owned, and you can try it. And they haven't been necessarily operating in that manner to date, right? I think it's an important, thing to make note of. There is that it feels like they have been and somewhat rightfully so, they're running it down. They have these people to kind of report to, and they kind of like have these duties to try to, make revenue and etc. But do they? It kind of seems catch-22 that you would build and launch this protocol with protocol-owned liquidity that has a capital cost of zero. That's the benefit of it. And then you're gonna try to make revenue with it. You can, sure, it works. You suddenly become equal with the rest of the bridges, the rest of everybody out there who has actual cost of capital. It's kind of like Stargate LARPing that they have cost of capital, and they don't need to. Like they can make everything free, arguably, right? I mean, free. You want the protocol to occur
Yeah, I
some
mean,
level.
it kind of goes against their biggest strengths in a way.
Yeah, and this was always a weird thing to me, right? And so this would be like my long tail. This has to happen. I've always thought this has to happen with Stargate eventually. And maybe LayerZero is going to give it a kick and start pushing it down this direction. But its biggest benefit is that it has a bunch of money for free, essentially. It doesn't have to pay anyone for this money. It doesn't have interest on this money. It's not a loan. It's not a borrow. It's not a carry. It's nothing. It's just Stargate has a bunch of protocol and liquidity because it did this one-off thing years ago that would be kind of really hard to replicate again with the ICO and the sale, right? So why not lean into that? Why are you still charging like equivalent costs on major routes and etc.? Why not just lever into the fact that your liquidity is free and more or less try to cannibalize everything? I mean, this is what I would do. This is what I'm trying to do on a really, really tiny level, right? And it's like it feels like and everyone has always thought bridging goes to zero, right?
Yeah.
Everything's gone to zero. Trading fees have gone to zero. Exchange fees have gone to zero. LP fees on Uniswap. Look at V4. They have like 0.0001 now or something. Like everything trends to zero as it becomes more and more accessible.
Mhm.
This is only happening. Everyone knows this. And I think this is ultimately why I don't know how unless you think Stargate has some alternative revenue source, and maybe they do. I'm thinking just their trading and their fees. I don't know. You have to be bullish that Stargate's going to like grow in raking fees in cross-chain bridging volumes over the following years. In every other context we talk about this with bridging and cross-chain solving and etc., it's the exact opposite. We're like, it's going down day by day. Bridging is becoming worse and worse of a business. It's becoming a race to zero. And this is something that I think maybe not everybody, that I think that maybe some, people who have financial incentives in Stargate maybe turned a blind eye to it and just, not turn a
I mean,
blind eye, just.
it's something that people in Interop kind of joke about. Like everybody knows it's the truth, but like we say it as if it's like a joke.
It's not a joke, right? I mean, it's really not.
Margins are going to zero, and we may look back at this moment where it's like, okay, it's officially now going to zero because like they don't need to actually care about any of the profits or like the revenues. They can just do things for free because like their actual revenue maker is just something else.
Yeah, and I think they probably didn't do it for free because there was a time when they were making tons of revenue.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, and that helped them operate, and it helped them, operate at like not like a real net like deficit. But if this gets in-house to LayerZero, like I don't think they need to make a profit on this.
Mm-hmm.
LayerZero is a business in and of itself, right? They have integrations, they have this, they have that, they have venture funding, they have etc. So it might take that strain off LayerZero Stargate, where they're like, we have to try to rake all these transactions and we have to try to get our 100K a month profit back up to, $3 million, whatever it is, to try to sustain and cover our cost of running this foundation. And that's just, I think I don't think anyone in bridging today, is operating under the assumption that they are going to like significantly grow to the extent of 30, 40, 50x like fees on this sort of transactional volume in the coming year or two, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not. Are you guys?
No, I mean, I feel like the only example that I can think of where a bridging team was actually able to make revenue was probably D-Bridge, and that's the only reason they were able to do that was because they tied revenue to the point system, right? So they basically made their users pay $1 for like every 3 or 4 points or something.
Want that like meme where the guy like bonks you over the head and he's
Yeah.
like points aren't revenue. Like pre-selling points under the table isn't revenue, right? Yeah, I mean, they did I call this like the looks rare. The looks rare was one of the first people who did this. They had a token, and they would issue the token when you spent fees on the protocol, and so it just and they would do fixed amount like 10 million a day. And it just resulted in a bunch of people wash trading and burning fees because there was a point up until there was a deficit and they would just get more LooksRare token back. And ultimately, everyone 2 weeks later kind of stood up and looked back and they go, wait a second. LooksRare, and they put their tornado cash. It was sicko. Wait a second. Why did LooksRare just where did they get $260 million and why did it go to tornado cash? We're like, oh, I get it. We just funded a $250 million ICO.
Yeah.
And guess what? LooksRare, not a profitable business. So no, I don't think Deepbridge makes revenue. I mean, maybe they do because of the fact that they charge you an arm and a leg today, but sorry, Deepbridge makes revenue because they charge chains as integration as a service, 10K a month.
That is true.
Which is that I respect that revenue for sure. But yeah, no, I mean, this is like, I think the TLDR is that this is like clearly the best possible outcome probably for Stargate, particularly if LayerZero has determined that this is a outcome that they desire. If it's not Stargate, then it's going to be someone else. I think LayerZero fundamentally has the ability to kill Stargate. I think if they just disappeared tomorrow, there's a chance Stargate just dies, right? If they're not providing them this ecosystem support. I mean, Angus's thing was like, it was written like a PR'd way of like, these guys do a lot for me, poor bros. Like, And for what it's worth, I think something that hasn't been mentioned that's worth mentioning is taking into consideration what the foundation wants. I haven't seen a single person mention this. These guys are employees of an entity somewhere. Even if you think it's a DAO, there's an entity somewhere. These 20 people are employees. They're not slaves. They don't have to go to work tomorrow. They can all quit. You want to sell their company off to Axelar? I would just fucking quit the next day. What are you talking about? It's just, all I'm saying is, I think it appears that this is what the foundation wants as well too, for whatever reason. Angus outlined some reasonings. They might have more internally. Who knows? But I imagine they're under resourced. They are probably frustrated with this pipeline that exists between the two. They're aligned with everything they do, and they're just like, why are we doing this? And their lives are difficult. They don't have enough people to handle it and deal with it. And it appears this is what they want. And if that's true, then I think this is something that Stargate holders should take into consideration. And hey, the 20 people that are maintaining and building Stargate to be the product that you love and care about so much here, that's making these revenues that you care about so much here, like, have you ever considered what they want? Because if you don't, there's a chance they just leave tomorrow. And then you want to capitalize and hire, or you want to hire a new foundation dev team? Good luck.
I mean, I don't think that happens. Like, we've seen that happen in the past. Like, I feel like Sushi is an example where there was like a whole new management and tech team, but I don't see that happening in this case because, as you rightly summarized, there's this whole context of like alignment, history, and everything just makes sense. So,
No,
like you
yeah,
said,
more just some of the stuff I think that we've read, right, and you've seen in the ecosystem or seen in these comments. I would probably adjust my percentage to now like 95% that you say this, and say 5% of the lawyers fucking it up. Like surely this works. It is objectively like a good outcome for everybody, a profitable outcome for everybody. Like this should have happened. Stargate DAO should have never existed.
Maybe there's definitely an alternate world where the chronology of events is totally different. Right? Imagine if LayerZero launched first and the token came first. Like, you don't need a Stargate token, maybe. But yeah, like, let's see how things pan out. Like, we've done our best to kind of give our opinion on things and sort of summarize what's going on in the forums, in the Discord chats. Yeah, like, let's see what happens. I feel like it'll go through, and then probably we'll start the official countdown for bridging fees going to zero.
I think it starts bridging fees going to zero. I think it starts some level of. It felt like bridges and market makers and solvers kind of have this like unwritten cabal handshake between each other where they're like, listen, this is like the floor. And if we go any lower than the floor, like none of us make money. So let's all like kind of stay at the floor. And like there's a bunch of shenanigans you can do with that as soon as you just don't respect that. And I think this might be the start of the shenanigans where you have somebody that can come in and just, I mean, I don't know how much money LayerZero has. I think they have a lot of money.
Yeah.
What if LayerZero just shoves like another, $500 million into the liquidity, right? Who knows? They can do all this crazy stuff suddenly and not charge anything. Okay, well, what happens to Relay? What happens to us? What happens to Across? What happens to whatever? What happens if they just start subsidizing everything again, right? They have infinite zero. What happens if they do emissions and kind of like what Across did when you would bridge and you would like get like accumulated OP token, I don't know. They can start doing a bunch of stuff. And I think this is why it's like they think it's if I was in foundation's position, I would be like, yeah, please. I'm operating with $8 million a year, 20 people. I'm making 300K a month. We're stressing out because you guys go to bed and I wake up and this and that. We all do the same thing functionally. Like when my friends are over there at LayerZero and like I watch, when we talk, when we're doing an integration between each other and it's like, oh, these guys like have resources and like they have all these people to help them. And we have 20 people and they're functionally kind of trying to do, not trying to do a similar job, the same thing as LayerZero, obviously, right? But it's similar, it's the same caliber of work, right? I think don't I have I think a lot of people who say LayerZero, they're like, oh, LayerZero, Stargate, they're the same thing, they're patting each other on the head, yada yada, right? I think it just under credits some level of some of the people. Like Stargate's a sicko product, and even if they got a lot of help from LayerZero, I think there's still the team there, right? Do we think they just sat there and did nothing? Yeah, so I think these guys have done something, arguably something you can't do again. I would love to try to. Can I make a Stargate? Like, who's going to give me the money?
Probably not.
I viewed synthetics this way. I think if anyone tried to do a synthetics again, it would just die. Synthetics worked because it grew at such a rate, and the founders had such a large stake, and the founders were rich, and the founders just doubled down their riches back into it, and the stars just aligned. And I think synthetics, hyperliquid, and this might be it too. Yeah, this might be it too. There's a couple of these things that'll just work out where you're not going to be able to replicate it again. It worked at some certain time in the world, and they were the first to kind of try and implement this, and then other things come and go. And I think Stargate is probably one of these things. For what it's worth, I think this is why LayerZero's will pay $110 million for it. Like they could just go build their own.
That's the best way to end it. Like that's the best summary that anyone can probably come up with.
It's a lot of money. That's all I'm saying. It's a lot. It's a sicko. And best of luck, soldiers. All I know is Stargate's a sicko bridge, and I would actually be upset if I woke up one morning and it was even slightly less sicko than it currently is right now, right? And I think that's going to be the exact opposite. You're going to wake up and you're going to be like, yo, like Stargate gave me an eBay gift card for fucking bridging today. Like, hell yeah, right? But yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing what I think we'll probably know in about a week and a half or something, right?
Yeah.
Give or take.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for your time. I always enjoy these, and hopefully, the
Likewise,
listeners
sir.
also just get up to speed with what's going on in the Interop trenches.
Absolutely. Likewise. Yeah, thank you for having us. Disclaimer, both Arjun and I are not,
Smart.
sure. Yeah. Listen, this is not uninformed. This is your unsolicited opinions from two guys who read a bunch of Twitter. Yeah. And I think that, I think there's merit to that. Probably said numbers wrong and whatever.
Interop dogs as well. So the knowledge just matches.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.